I need to just jump in about the London Spirit, Andy. we're leaping about all over the place, but I need to make sure that I get this question in. Um, it's a bit of a sleeping giant, isn't it? And there's no secret that the new owners have said, right, who's the best coach? Who's got the best record? So no pressure, but you're going to have to awaken the sleeping giant because the London Spirit. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of players with whom you have won titles. And I've asked a lot of them. I said, "What is it about Andy? What is it?" And they all say he builds a team, and they're talking about spirit, London spirit. So what is it? How do you make everyone feel part of a team? Was it like quiz night every Tuesday?
Well, actually, James Pipe, our physio, runs a brilliant quiz night. Uh, but it is a little more than that, obviously. I've really enjoyed my years in franchise cricket. It's a different challenge to coaching in the international game. You're looking for quick results. You're looking for quick team building. Uniting a group, getting them moving in one direction quite quickly, getting them comfortable with each other, also getting them used to a pattern of play quite quickly in the franchise game, because you might only have 4 days in the lead up to a franchise tournament. It's a little longer in the IPL, but the shorter the tournaments, the shorter the lead up. So I've enjoyed that challenge, and I've also enjoyed, meeting a really interesting and diverse bunch of young cricketers. Um, yeah, and that changes every tournament you have. And if you're lucky enough to stay with a team for a few years, that changes every year with a turnaround of either a draft or an auction. So it's brilliant fun being involved. Um, of course, I'll have some of my own methods. I'm very lucky to work with some very good people. I mentioned James Pipe, our physio. He's brilliant at team building. Mo Bobat, who I work with both at RCB and London Spirit, as the director of cricket of both those organizations. He's a very smart operator, very efficient and effective, and a good foil for me because he's so well organized. So um, getting a management team together that is good at what they do, and there's nice diversity in that. I think that's important. And then getting the right people in the dressing room and the training ground and then onto the field is very important. So auctions or drafts, are very important, and then you've got to do your team building and structuring from there.
Andy, we had Liam Livingston on, what, 2, 3 weeks ago, Manners? And Liam spoke very sort of highly of yourself and Mo Bobat and the difference between being left out of an RCB team and not being drafted again by RCB to what happened with, obviously, what happened with his England central contract. You've got Liam, you've got Jamie Overton, you've got Brewis, you've got Zampa. I mean, that's a wide range of bases covered, as in the spine of your team. Is that another area you look at when you're building franchise tournaments, that we have, from an overseas point of view, or what's so-called star players point of view, a nice diverse balance of, bat, ball, and impact?
Yeah, those direct signings before you get to the auction are obviously important because you're not under auction pressure, or there is obviously competition for those players. But you can pick and choose with a little more time, and you're not subjected to the vagaries of the auction. So you want to cover off some key areas. So we had a look at talking about a brilliant management team. We've got a great analyst in Freddie Wild, who actually he's in his last 12 months he's got an IPL trophy, a 100 trophy with Oval Invincibles, and he's also got a trophy with Desert Vipers in the IL T20. How's that for a trophy cabinet for a young
Nearly as good as yours.
analyst? So
Nearly as
that's
good as yours.
so we're lucky to have him, and through some of his work, we identified what we think are important roles to cover in the 100. So we've got power, a lot of power in Livingston and Deval Brevis. We've got the leg spinner, who's a world-renowned leg spinner who is incredibly consistent and good under pressure, in Adam Zampa. And we've got an all-rounder, and getting an all-rounder early is, as you can imagine, quite important, because straight away you've sort of balanced your 11, which is quite important. In the IPL, you have an impact sub that helps with balancing your side. You're effectively playing 12, but in the 100 you're not. So having an all-rounder like Jamie Overton, who can bat at 7, he's got power, but he can also bowl 4 aggressive overs. That's a good start, getting that on your books. So as you described, Harmy, that's, you try to get a bit of the spine to your team, and then it makes the auction a little bit easier.
If you look at some of the success of other franchise teams, take Sunrisers Eastern Cape in the SA20, the Perth Scorchers, serial winners of the Big Bash, they've tried to go local as much as possible and use that whatever is at the core of the original club. They've used that as as something to attract fans and to make the players play. And I guess that it's Lords with the Spirit. I mean, it's the home of cricket. It's Lords. I've always got the sense that perhaps in the past they weren't able to use that as an asset.
Yes, I think that's a good question to ask. In the 100, I obviously it would be nice to have Middlesex players in the 11, but I don't think that's crucial, to be honest. I think the increased status that is going to be given to the 100, which is a very successful product as it stands at the moment, but the increased status and energy and oomph that's going to be given to the 100 via the involvement of these incredible investors. And I'm talking about over the 8 sides. I'm not just talking about our investors at Lords, at London Spirit. I think this coming 100 is going to be absolutely sensational. I think it's going to be very, very exciting to be involved in. I think it's going to be brilliant to watch. I think I'd be very surprised if it's not the second best white ball tournament in the world, and I can't wait for that to happen. I think even the range and status of our investors at Lords is going to bring a lot of interest. But we intend to play very exciting cricket. London Spirit have not had a good 5 years yet. In the 5 years that the 100 has been running, Mo and I have been employed to do something about that, and we will take that seriously.
Andy, I've just come back from Sri Lanka, and we sat down with Phil Salt, and he made an interesting point. I'd love to get your take on it because of the amount of tournaments you've played around the world, and what your wider view of franchise cricket is, coming from an era of traditional Test match cricket. He said in England we are very, very suspicious of franchise tournaments. And I was wondering, because I must admit, our hands on cards on the table, I am very, very. I've not been a sort of a winner over of the 100, because not so much. I love the fact that we're all playing against the best, and it's 8 teams, big time of the year. I've got no problem, big crowds and stuff like that. I don't like the format, but that's just me personally. I don't think I'm suspicious of franchise cricket. But when Phil said, who is a franchise player, that in England we are suspicious of franchise tournaments. What's your view on that, with the amount of tournaments you've seen around the world? Are English cricket supporters suspicious of the franchise world?
I think it's an interesting description and use of language, and there might be an element of truth to that. And I think some of that narrative is driven a little in the media, to be honest. People read and listen to pundits
idiots like me.
or journalists,
Me.
and that plays a part. There's an influence there, and there has been a suspicion in England about the 100. Look, a couple of points that I'd make are, if you look at it, if you look at the product of the 100 from a business perspective, it's amazing what value has been given to this product in just 5 years. You look at the money that's going to be injected into English cricket. And I think doing that within 5 years is incredible. There were many reasons, or there were a few reasons why the product needed to be shortened a little. You know, one of them might be attention spans, although, you know, it's not that much shorter than a T20 match. But BBC and coverage in that medium is really important to reach a greater number of people, and BBC wanted a smaller, a shorter product. So that's a good reason. And I actually sat on the group that helped come up with the rules of the 100 once we'd been given the task of shortening the game. And so that was quite an interesting project to be involved in. And I think one of the amazing byproducts, and it's no coincidence because it was one of the aims of the tournament, was to reach a different demographic and interest other people in the game. And from what I understand, I'm not a marketing specialist, but from what I understand from the ECB, but also just from speaking to people, and also obviously being involved in the 100 and seeing the crowds, there is a different demographic watching the 100 and finding it really enjoyable. So the crowds are watching, it's being watched on TV, and I think it's only going to get better with this private investment. So I think it should be embraced positively. My experience of it is very positive. I think it's a wonderful tournament. So I've only got good things to say about it.
Very, very quickly, in terms of innovation, recently in Sri Lanka, Brendan McCullum used a walkie-talkie to talk to Harry Brook on the field. And I know that, I mean, you were way ahead of your time in many aspects as a player and as a coach, but you've always spoken about how cricket lags behind other sports, particularly, I suppose, the American sports, in terms of technical innovations. And walkie-talkies may not be particularly innovative technically, but do you think that cricket can still do a lot more in terms of analysis and technology?
Well, certainly in terms of analysis, there are always improvements to be made, I think. Sometimes people view the data or analysis as a bit of a rude word, because they view it in black and white terms, in that if you use data, then you're not trusting the instincts of the players and allowing them freedom to make their own decisions. I think that's a really limited view of that discussion. You can definitely have both. I think it's responsible to use and interpret data. And then you're also responsible for filtering that information, and only use what is useful to the players to make them better players, or to give them a greater understanding of the game and themselves. And then obviously through your specialist coaches, you're trying to bring out the best of these guys, and their decision making, and certainly making them feel as if they're free to make their own decisions. So definitely in that regard, Manners, I think that will be a continual area of improvement as technology improves and we can mine more data.
Is that, sorry, Andy, I'm just going to jump in and say, is that how am I trying to say this? Is that what the sort of modern day coach is sort of moving towards, rather than before? You know, I remember working with Duncan Fletcher, and a lot of hands-on, and he was having to explain a lot more, and coaches would have to explain a lot more. Now, because you're data driven, is it a challenge for you as the head coach to know, right, this bloke doesn't need the information because his skill sets aren't, you know, information driven, he's instinct driven, and I just need to drip feed a little bit in and away he goes? Or somebody that needs a little bit more handheld to get him in a position to start playing the way he needs to. Is that the challenge of the modern day coach now, or is there other things that are coming in which were completely different to when, you know, the analytics weren't as potent in the game?
Well, to be honest, Harmy, I think that's always a challenge for a coach, and probably always has been a challenge for a coach. The only thing that is changing is the amount of data available, and probably how quickly we can interpret that information. But I think it's always been a challenge for a coach to, whether you get technical with them or whether you use numbers to either stimulate or challenge them, or to grow their understanding of themselves or the flow of the game. So that challenge has always been there, I think. And our challenge as coaches is to treat each person as an individual and find the best way to help them optimize their potential. That is our job as coaches. And that's a fascinating and really rewarding part of coaching.